Welcome back to the Immigration Guy. Today we're sitting down with Greg Schonefeld, CEO of Ag Installers, and Angie Schultz, Certified StoryBrand Guide. You met Greg in our previous podcast episode on entrepreneurial operating systems. Angie was in the first class to become a certified copywriter and guide of StoryBrand, a marketing framework that helps businesses achieve growth. Welcome, Greg and Angie. Thank you for making time to join us today. How are y'all doing?
Good. Thanks for having us.
So, Angie, I think if I remember, so Greg's talked about you a lot, both off of the podcast. I also think that he might have mentioned you on the podcast, but
I think I did. Indirectly, at least. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He might not have mentioned you by name, but he definitely, you got him really excited.
Yeah.
Well, I've loved working with Greg. He's been a great client of mine, and we've been working hard on the StoryBrand framework for, I don't know, it's been over the course of the last 8 months or so, hasn't it, Greg, that we've been working together on some projects.
Hey, y'all. This is the Immigration Guy with Kyle Farmer.
And most of that, we were probably a little slow on our end getting her everything we needed. But no, this is coming with great timing because we did actually just complete our website's published as of a week ago. So, and I guess, my experience was, maybe I'm jumping ahead here, but, I read the book StoryBrand and loved it. And went online because, actually having that EOS experience, off another book I loved. Then with EOS, you can find an implementer that shows you, tells you, coaches you how to do it. So when I loved StoryBrand and found out they had certified guides, I was like, I'm not wasting any time trying to do this myself. I'm going to go find one. So love StoryBrand, looking for a guide, landed on Angie's page, and it literally says, you love the book StoryBrand, but you can implement it yourself. And I was like,
that's right.
Yes, you're talking exactly to me, which is what the marketing tells you to do, make people feel like you're talking to them. So it's just like kind of I don't know. And you could click a button, get in her calendar. I did it. Hers was the first page I landed on. Clicked the button, got in her calendar. I did a little research after that just to see what else is out there. But we had the call, I think the next day, and I agreed on the spot. Yes, let's go. Cause everything felt easy and right. And that's how it went from start to finish.
That's awesome. Yeah. Angie, I don't know if you know this about Greg, but Greg is one of the best people to talk to because it allows you to bypass reading anything because he will read it. And he will tell you about it, and it works great. He's like a human Cliff Notes. He has a library in his house. He's the only person to run out of memory on a Kindle. Is that what they're called?
Yeah. If only I had you in college, Greg.
It's great. No, yeah, and then the other great thing, which we'll get into StoryBrand in a second.
I'm like a human chat GPT, sometimes.
You are. And except for the difference between you and chat GPT is you give all the good information. You're like, you're like, hey, I read this 400-page book and most of it's crap, but these 3 points are really important. I'm like, dude, Greg, you just saved me 400 pages of having to read something. That is so awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, so tell us, Angie, just for people that don't know, what is StoryBrand, and tell us why does it matter to business owners?
StoryBrand is a marketing framework. And so it really, I think about it as just building blocks to how do you tell your story as a company in a way that connects with your audience. And marketing of past would say that if we say enough good things about our company, we say enough good things about ourselves, then people are just naturally going to be attracted to us. So that's why you see websites that say lots and lots of things about we were founded in this time and our founder was this, and have these long, robust stories about the company, and the audience just can't filter that information. We process about 3,000 commercial messages every day. And so our brain is filtering for what is going to help us survive and thrive. And the StoryBrand framework takes that marketing approach and spins it on its head to say, let's make this a story about our customer. So who are we talking to? They become the main character of our story. We identify the problem that they're facing. And if we can give really good voice to that problem, then we can hook them into the story, showcase how we're going to help them overcome that problem and survive and thrive, and then stick with us to hear how we can help them solve the problem.
Yeah. One thing that kind of stood out to me whenever Greg was telling me about StoryBrand is it's really cool because it seems like what a lot of business owners do is they try to they have a particular thing that they want to sell, and their focus is on what they want to sell, not what their customer wants to buy. Where it's like so it's like the exact opposite. It's like, hey, let me tell you how I can add value to you. It's not instead of what it probably should be is tell me how I can add value to you, and I'll do that thing. And it seems like StoryBrand does a good job of kind of owning that.
Yeah, StoryBrand gets down to a little bit deeper level. So there's this obvious problem that we're fixing. Like if I need a vacuum cleaner, okay, great. I'm shopping for a vacuum cleaner. You can solve that problem for me. But it gets down to the level of the internal, what StoryBrand calls the internal problem, which is, why do I want that vacuum cleaner? Well, because I'm embarrassed when people are coming to my house and it's dirty, or I start to feel inadequate as a spouse or as a parent. And so StoryBrand just goes past the surface. And if you can connect on that human level, then people are more likely to stick around and listen, because that's what's connected back to the surviving and thriving.
Yeah. It kind of goes back to, what motivates your audience. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times in our work, it's you're going to run into people that are motivated by time. They want to save time. You're going to find plenty of people that are motivated by their reputation. They're afraid that their reputation is just going to fall apart if they can't get people, something like that. And then the other one would be money. How much money are they losing by not being able to realize certain opportunities, or how much money are they losing by getting people that just don't want their jobs or not getting people at all? So it's kind of it's cool that y'all are able to put that into a relevant framework for people that's specific to their particular business, because that's not always going to be the same.
Yeah, you're so right.
I'll add a couple things that I really love about StoryBrand, and one is exactly what Angie just said, the internal problems, because I think the natural is to be like, okay, so we install equipment and we're going to say, we're on time, we're quality, and we're going to go install your equipment. Like you're just like really kind of
Greg. I forgot to ask you early on, just so anyone that didn't hear what y'all do to begin with, do you mind kind of telling everyone what does Ag Installers do?
We do professional cage-free equipment installation for the egg industry.
Wow, that's crisp. That must have come from
StoryBrand, dude. It came from StoryBrand. So that's the other thing is the focus, and so the internal messaging, like Angie talked about, or kind of like, man, okay, I'm buying an install, but what am I really buying? I want, I've had all these headaches with other installers, or man, am I going to meet my birth date? Am I going to maintain my sanity? Those are Angie's words. And so you're meeting these, this internal struggle. If some of these, buyers of our services, they haven't built before, or they haven't built in years. Like you're an egg farmer and you got to manage this construction project. Man, that's a huge undertaking. How does the person feel when they're going to go do that? And how can we help them feel comfortable and not only help them feel comfortable, but really deliver in a way that, then we've got to back that up where we deliver in a way that it all feels great and easy, and we're their guide, and by the end they've got what they need to be the cage-free, operation that they dreamed of. And the other thing I really love about StoryBrand is the focus. So that was all, everything I just said was directed towards kind of solving these internal problems. The focus is the other one. And it is, the Donald Miller, that's his name, right? The author of StoryBrand. Yep. Mm-hmm. He says most people ask, hey, what do you do? And well, we started our business 8 years ago and we have, 80 people and, our revenue is growing and you're like, what? Yeah, I work in agriculture. We do construction. Like you just talk like that. And I think that's like very natural. I think the first, almost everyone's like, we've been 8 years in business. That's like the first thing you say. Well, now it's like crisp. We do professional cage-free installation for the egg industry. And the other thing, it is like very focused because you want whoever's going to your website to feel like they offer exactly what I'm looking for. Like if we're, which actually makes us not only focus on our messaging, but focus as a business. I mean, we've had kind of different ideas of maybe different lines of services we could offer and those kind of things. But like today, we are extremely focused as a company. And part of that was inspired by StoryBrand because I don't want to be like, oh, we do labor for agriculture. Well, now someone comes to our site, and they want an install and, oh, they do labor. Yeah, install is part of it. I wonder, is their install piece their strength or what? Well, now, I mean, it's clear. Install is what we do. So that's the other thing I love.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. I think that you're also exactly right, is that most people, whenever they ask what you do, a lot of times people go on and on about these things that no one cares about. It's like I've already stopped paying attention by the time you actually get to the point of where you add value to people. And the tagline that you had that was really crisp. And by the way, I know most people can't see this. Greg looked at Angie like, you are about to be so proud of me whenever he delivered that tagline. But it was great. Like it's a great, he nailed it. It was a great tagline. It was crisp. It was clear. Showed your value, and it was all in a sentence. Like that was really good.
Yeah. Well, I think that feeds like right into like the brand script, question you have there, with where Angie. I mean, she interviewed us, and she was our guide through all that. Angie,
tell us what a brand script is and kind of how you take people through this process.
Yeah. So a StoryBrand brand script is the tool that you use to develop your StoryBrand message. So how do you actually use this concept that we've been talking about, putting your customer first in the stories? You start with a brand script. And a brand script is, again, just those building blocks. So we literally break down the components of a story and apply them to your messaging, apply them to your audience. So who's your character is the first component. So defining our target audience. What do they want as it relates to what you offer? What problem is keeping them from what they want? How does that make them feel? Then we get to the part of that's all been focused on the client and the solution. And then we get to transition the client and the problem. And then we get to transition into the solution. The solution is, how do we position your company as the solution to that problem? Position you as a guide. So the person or the company coming alongside the character to help them overcome their problem and achieve the success that they want. And so as a guide, we have to position ourselves with both empathy and authority. The first, empathy, is we can relate to your struggle. Either we've lived it ourselves or we have worked with hundreds or thousands of people who have felt it before. And authority, we're competent enough to be in this space. So we back up our messaging with testimonies and number of client serves, years of experience, certifications, awards, to showcase we know what we're doing in this space. We go on then to a plan where we talk about, this is what it looks like to work with us. So at this point, the audience is interested. They believe that you can help them solve their problem, but they may be hesitant to take that first step. Donald Miller, author of StoryBrand, talks about it like a raging stream. So there's this stream. You may be nervous about taking a step into that stream until you can see the stepping stones to get across. So in order to get from where you are to where you want to be, you've got to see the stepping stones to get there. So the plan helps us do that. It takes out all the confusion or objections that they might have about doing business with you, and really positions it in a way that they think, oh, that sounds easy. I can do that.
Yeah.
Then we call them to action. And then finally, we paint a picture of success and failure. Failure, what's at stake if they don't do business with you? success, what's possible if they do. And you can see this once you've identified the StoryBrand framework and you understand it, you'll see it everywhere. It's in every movie. It follows the same trajectory. Every book follows this format. And it's what helps our audience. Think about when you're reading a book or you're watching a movie. It's one of those few times that your brain probably quiets everything else out. You can really focus in and zero in. And it's even stronger when you can relate to that story. The same thing is happening here. We start to quiet the noise, help them focus on a story that follows a pattern that we're similar or that we're familiar with. And so how do we get there? You can write a brand script on your own. You can read the StoryBrand book. It's called Building a StoryBrand by Donald Miller, and it walks you through the entire process. If you're like Greg and want some help to have someone walk you through it, then someone like myself, a StoryBrand certified guide, can help you develop that story and not only develop the brand script, but then help you apply it on your website and other marketing materials.
I recommend clicking a button on Angie's website and have 3 90-minute meetings, and you got it.
And boom, you're done. Yeah, it is. That actually brings up a good point, Angie. We heard Greg's tagline. Let's hear yours.
I help people who love StoryBrand use it.
Oh, so good. That is so good.
Simple, right?
Look at that. It's like 7 words.
Yeah. Well, that's all. I'm not like Greg. I can't remember all the things, so I have to keep it as short as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Greg got his tattooed on him, so you should probably try that.
There you go.
It is. So one of my old employees he said this, and after he said, I'm like, dang, that is exactly right. He said, one thing that you'll notice with a lot of marketing firms is they sell you things that make you look good. They're more focused on things that make you look good. So really what they're doing is they're selling to the ego of a business owner. And what I love that y'all do is it is exactly opposite. It is we're not selling to you, we're selling to your customers. That's what it's supposed to be. We're selling you to your customers. What do your customers care about? And I think that that's really cool. And I would love to hear from you, Greg, kind of what that process was like, because I'm sure I think that the natural tendency is the first one. Most business owners, I think, are probably. I think that is probably the pervasive or the common way of doing marketing, because it works. It works to sell to business owners. It works to sell to the things that they like, the things that they want people to hear about them. Where y'all are doing the exact opposite. And I'd be curious, Greg, if you ever went through kind of a transition phase to being these marketing people were focused on the things that I like. These people, but Angie's focused on the things my customers like. If there was any kind of transition there for you.
Yeah, the thing I really like about StoryBrand is it provides kind of a strategy framework, and I think I guess the way I would look at marketing firms now is that there's a lot of kind of aspects to marketing. There's that strategy framework. There's messaging. There's imagery, kind of aesthetics. There's a lot of these pieces, and some of the aesthetics, if someone's going to go shoot a video or shoot photography for you, photography. That's a hard word.
You nailed it though. It can be kind of hard to, maybe value that, but it is important. The imagery part, I think, is important. And I think a lot of marketing firms kind of hone in on that, but it's kind of hard to measure too. And they're kind of hitting you with these feelings. Anyway, the thing I love about StoryBrand is his strategy kind of framework. It's like a messaging based thing. And you can kind of put the right kind of imagery on top of it. But that's the thing I really love is it really lays out that framework. And then the thing I loved about, working with
Angie, first of all, I said I felt she was speaking directly to me when I got there, on her website. Another thing that was really awesome is like there's a 1, 2, 3 on her website. Like 1, schedule a non-sales sales call, or that's what it was at the time. I don't know if that's changed now. And 2, have a conversation. 3, basically sign up and she's going to take care of it. And it's like, wow. And she was very transparent. I'm 4 to 6 weeks out right now. And I'm like, well, okay. And then we're going to do weekly 90-minute meetings. I'm like, okay, in 8 weeks, I'm going to have the StoryBrand brand script. And it was like so crystal clear on the front end, what you're getting and when, and the pricing was crystal clear too. And all that. And just kind of very obvious what you're going to get for what you're investing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great. Angie, if you were to challenge our listeners or business owners to one thing today, what would it be?
StoryBrand has something called the grunt test, which is meant to take a look at the header section of your site, so the very top of your website before you scroll, and try to answer 3 questions really quickly and really clearly. The reason they call it a grunt test is because it ought to be so clear to answer these questions that a caveman could grunt it back to you in a few seconds. So those 3
Sounds
questions
like me
are
and Kyle's conversations.
So those 3 questions are: what is it that you offer? How does it add value to my life? And how do I get it? So is there a clear and direct call to action? And that stops that stops your brain that's filtering all those messages. How is it going to help me survive and thrive? If I can quickly see that, this is something that's going to help me thrive, then it will do that. So 2-3 seconds, 3 questions. What is it that you offer? How does it make my customer's life better? And how do I get it? So that would be your button, your call to action, like buy now or schedule a call. So that if someone's ready to take action, they know from the very start, this is what I do.
That's cool. What's the biggest mistake you see business owners make?
Great question. That probably what I said before is positioning everything about them. So telling their whole story, putting too much content up at the top of a page. So as your audience is scrolling, they're getting more invested in the story. So if you go content heavy at the top, paragraph after paragraph, like you look at it and it looks like you're reading a book, the brain is going to say, no way, I'm not filtering through this. I've got too many other things. And so we're naturally going to bounce from that. And so short, concise sentences that achieve these points we talked about: problem, solution, positioning yourself as the guide. Then as you get lower in the page, and I like long form home pages. So as you scroll a little bit more, you get a little bit more. So you'll see a longer plan section, like I talked about. You might see some FAQ at the bottom where you can go really into detail. Don Miller talks about an explanatory paragraph at the bottom of your website where you can reinforce that full story. So you might see 3 or 4 paragraphs down there at the very bottom of some of my websites. But that's because your audience is ready for it. So too much content, too high in the page you'll lose your audience every time.
Yeah. I generally hate seeing a lot of content on home pages anyways. Like I like home pages that are just simple, like me. That's all I need is home pages that, well, I guess if it was like me, the homepage would actually probably say a lot. So maybe that's not true. Maybe it's a little bit different.
But say it so well.
Oh, thanks, Greg. Greg, was there anything that when you were going through this process that stands out in your mind that's like, well, I had that backwards, or like, man, I was doing that exactly wrong, or man, everyone else I talked to said the exact opposite.
Yeah, I think maybe maybe in the process, not so much change, but in reading the book, and now
that's
just
what I mean.
Having seen it and being aware of it, it is like kind of obvious. Like now, if I go to a website and I'm like, it's not clear what they do and where I go, I'm like, very kind of turned off to it. Like I'm moving on, because I'm kind of like, this company probably doesn't have it together if they can't kind of produce this. And that's probably the biggest thing I've learned. And because that's another thing I love. Like, so the messaging's crystal clear, but there's also a call to action button in the top right. Like, most people have like learn more, and you're still not really sure what they do, or like, okay, where do I even click to talk to somebody or whatever?
Yeah.
There's, it calls for a call to action button, like where you're somehow in contact with someone, or maybe even you're buying on the spot. I mean, in our kind of process, I mean, with all the the bid documents we need, like the certain things we need, like our first step is a conversation to really get clear on what the customer is looking for. Yeah.
I really like your new website, by the way. It looks really good. And I do like, one thing that I completely agree. I mean, I agree with everything you just said, but one thing I think that's particularly important that a lot of websites don't have is making it easy to contact the person. And yours, you can't scroll one page down without having a let's talk button. And it's clear what you mean by that. It's like, that's going to take me to contact page. We're good to go.
Yeah.
So I do like that a lot.
Don Miller talks about that as the cash register. Like, if you're in a store shopping, and if, let's say I have my clothes, I'm ready to go, ready to buy, but I cannot find the cash register, then I'm just going to give up. I'm going to walk out. And so the same thing is true. No matter where your audience is on their site, they have to have eyes on the cash register to be able to take that action.
Yeah. I wonder if that's why all the stores in the mall have cash registers in the most random places. It's Probably. Like, oh, you're not getting out of this section without a cash register. That's interesting. That's great.
Yeah.
How many businesses would you say you help a month or a year, Angie?
Gosh, I've been doing this full time for the last 5 years, and we're right under 500 businesses 500? And nonprofits that we've worked with. Yeah.
And I think so 450 of them wrote testimonials for it. Like,
there are a lot of testimonials on the site. So yeah, it's been a wild ride. And like I said, we work for profit, nonprofit, and the connecting dots is that if you love StoryBrand, and really I have a heart to serve. So if your goal is to serve people, no matter if you are selling chicken or if you're installing cage-free chicken equipment, or you're selling tacos or anything between, then if you are there to make someone's life better and solve a problem, then it's been really cool to come alongside some businesses who are doing that.
Did you know that Greg at one point wanted to start a taco stand? Or a taco, what would you call it, Greg?
I wanted to call it Paco's Tacos, and it was just going to be breakfast tacos.
Sounds like our next project.
I thought it was perfect.
Yeah.
I think you can still do it, Greg. It's a great thing for retirement. You can be Paco.
I could see that. I
love that. Cool. Well, what's the best way to contact you, Angie?
I was just telling Greg before the call, I launched my new website, which has been in progress for the last 6 months between other clients, and it's live now. Angie at angieschultz.com. There's a C in Schultz, SCHULTZ. Oh, I'm sorry, that's my email address. You can email me, Angie at angieschultz.com, or my new website is angieschultz.com. And as Greg said, there's a button right there that says, let's talk StoryBrand.
Yep.
That's great.
Right to a calendar invite, and easy.
Yeah. It does say, let's talk StoryBrand. I'm on both y'all's websites, and they both look great. What about you, Greg? What's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, just go to our brand new website, aginstallers.com, aginstallers.com.
And then they'll be able to figure out what you do in a hurry.
It'll naturally tell you where you need to go from there.
That's right. There's not going to be any searching. That's for sure. Now Greg's the ultimate website snob. He's going on other people's websites like, have you ever read StoryBrand?
It's hard not to.
I love it. I love it. Awesome.
Yours
well, thank
is
you
great
guys
too, Kyle.
for joining. Oh, thank you. I think that our designers must have read StoryBrand.
I think, you definitely have elements of it for sure.
Yeah, I was comparing mine to y'all's, and I was like, you know what? It probably would have been better if Angie did it, but it's all right. It gets the point across.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys for joining. We'll talk to y'all soon. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all for listening to the Immigration Guy podcast. We really appreciate it. You can find us on our website. Go to www.farmerlawpc.com. You can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter. Just search @Kyle Farmer FLPC. You can find our law firm on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. All you have to do is search for @FarmerLawPC. Go ahead and subscribe to download all the episodes of our podcast. You can download them and listen to them whenever and wherever you want. We'll be releasing new episodes every Wednesday on Spotify, Apple Music, Stitcher, which is apparently a real thing, Amazon Music, Google, and wherever else you get your podcast. This is not legal advice, so any information that you get from this podcast should not be taken as such. If you are looking for legal advice, you should consult with a competent attorney for advice regarding your individual situation. If you want to schedule a consultation, just go ahead and use the link in the description of this episode. Thank you.